Part 31. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 307. Hearing Yejing's sole question, Lola Lamperouki's eyes began to wander, her face was a little embarrassed, she couldn't help but stretched out her hand, scratched her head, and said, "Actually, as for this, I think, it should be." He hesitated for a long time and said a lot of words, but none of them touched on the key points, which made everyone anxious. Gray said anxiously, "You should tell me. Who will understand if you don't tell me?" In fact, he was also imagining how awesome it would be if the innocent prince in front of him really became the emperor of the Crescent Empire. Awesome in every way. After he returned to Blue Star, he could point to Lola Lamperouki on the TV and proudly say, "Look, this is the first emperor of the Crescent Empire, I picked it up from the dungeon. Look, the emperor of the Crescent Empire, we were hunted down together back then, we were friends in need." If there is such a relationship, not only will he benefit from the fame, but the Edward family can also benefit from it. For example, if he opens a new business route and sells his family's salted fish and aquatic products to the moon, then that should how awesome. If you can get a title or something, that would be fine. Wasn't the uninvited guest who inexplicably broke in at his birthday ceremony a marquis? So arrogant, so glamorous, with the red carpet covering every step of the way, and a team of knights in shining armor protecting him, which is a cool touch. This is it. Lola Lamperouki smiled awkwardly and couldn't bear to look into everyone's eyes. She turned away and said, "Actually, it doesn't matter who is the emperor or something like that. I'm still young. I'm only in my 20s. I have a lot of time waiting for me to squander it. I have often seen before that my father, as the city lord of Crescent City, was still processing documents in the middle of the night. He was either running over the moon or on the road to running the map. In the end, he even disappeared. I don't want to be like this." As she spoke, Lola Lamperouki ignored everyone's dull gazes and said with longing in her eyes, "I want to be a bard, travel across thousands of mountains and rivers, fly across the entire solar system, and meet a beloved civilian girl by chance. Fly to the outer reaches of the solar system with your lover. This is my dream. You must have read too many novels." Yejing looked at Lola Lamperouki, who was caught up in fantasy with a confused look on his face. He could no longer complain. He originally thought that the person he picked up was an innocent person, but he didn't expect that he also had a bold style. This is another dreamy young man who was violated by novels. "Kids, wake up, this is reality." Before Yejing could speak to persuade, Gray's eyes, which had already fallen into fantasy before, suddenly turned red, and he hurriedly grabbed Lola Lamperouki's shoulders and shook him vigorously. "Wake up! Wake up! If you don't want to be the emperor, how can I show off? What should I do with my glory? How can I sell my salted fish to the moon? Can you please recognize the reality? You bastard! Another crazy one." Yejing held his forehead and pulled the frantic Gray away from Lola Lamperouki, and said angrily, "I think you should wake up too. What is this? Does he think he is the emperor and hums us, thing?" Well, even though he himself had imagined this in his mind, it wasn't that he didn't understand Gray's current thoughts. Lola Lamperouki, who was a little dizzy from being shaken, looked at Gray with a frightened look on her face. She couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Her lips trembled slightly before she uttered a sentence. "We don't eat cheap food like salted fish." Boom. As soon as these words came out, Gray became furious and rushed towards Lola Lamperouki with bared teeth and claws. "Discrimination. You are discriminating. You are declaring war on our Edward family. Apologize to the hard-working workers all over the world." Then, he was pushed by Lola Lamperouki, just a normal, gentle push. Immediately afterwards, Gray's body seemed like a cannonball that had escaped from the muzzle. Yejing and others looked at it in horror, and suddenly flew out, hit the wall heavily, and fell to the ground. Gray. Dot. Yejing. Dot. Ai Zyakui. Dot. Ji Kinjian. Dot. Seeing Gray's miserable condition, Yejing swallowed hard, his eyes widened, and he looked at Loro Lamperouki with an expression of disbelief, and said in shock, "Are you a practitioner?" Loro Lampelu nodded and said blankly, "Yes." "What's wrong?" Yejing's forehead was covered with black lines. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Lola Lamperouki spread her hands and said innocently, "You didn't even ask." Yejing slapped his forehead fiercely, feeling regretful in his heart. He should have thought of it a long time ago. If he is not a practitioner, can he be locked up with the shackles of Omega Light? Isn't this obvious? Ahem. Gray climbed up from the ground, covering his numb chest, and asked in surprise, "What level of practitioner are you?" Loro Lampelouki said with a face of shame, "My talent is not good, and now I am only at the 3rd level of Destiny Realm." "Well, very good, another hidden boss. Do all the big guys nowadays like this way of showing off? Bad talent? Just the Destiny Realm. Sure enough, I have learned a lot and gained knowledge. I will use words like this in the future." Suddenly, as if he thought of something, Yejing said with a look of disbelief, "You are in the Destiny Realm, and you just watch me being pressed to the ground and rubbed by a knight in golden armor." Loro Lamperouki said matter-of-factly, "You didn't ask me to take action." "Good reason, Yejing, kneel down." After a while of fussing, they finally got to the point. "The most important thing now is that at 10 a.m., it will be the Crescent Moon Empire's founding ceremony. How should we break through the heavy siege, go to the palace, and rush into the ceremony? This is the most annoying thing. They escaped from the palace with great difficulty, and they have to rush back by all means. Now it is estimated that except for the slums, the streets are full of royal guards, and the area near the palace has been surrounded. With just a few of them, they can't cross the siege." After thinking about it, Gray suddenly suggested, "How about we contact the chief? Let him take us in." Yejing directly retorted, "If he wants to take us in, there won't be so many things. I guess he might even drive us away directly when he sees Lola. This is for sure." Yejing frowned and thought about the method. After a moment of silence, suddenly a light flashed in his mind, and his eyes unconsciously glanced at the black cloth next to him and the aircraft under the black cloth. "Gray, do you know how we got here? In a flying vehicle. Do you understand?" "Okay, no need to say more, I understand." Understanding, understood in seconds. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 308. Chapter 304. King Li is here. Hey, hey, hey. What are you talking about? Why can't I understand a word? Lola Lampelouki asked in confusion. When Yejing and his team fell into the palace, he was still locked in the dungeon and didn't know what happened outside. Yejing explained, "When we came here, we drove a flying vehicle, but there was a small accident, so we fell into the palace. Now we have a flying vehicle, which is much simpler. As long as we wait until the time is right, we can drive the flying vehicle and force our way into the palace, and everything will be perfect." Force our way into the palace. Lola Lampelouki hesitated and said, "Isn't this a bit bad? What's wrong with this?" Yejing patted Lola Lampelouki on the shoulder and said earnestly, "Brother Dai, remember, this is not called forcing the palace, this is called sending you home. Misinterpretation, bending the facts, this is clearly forcing." Gray looked at Yejing twice and suddenly interrupted, saying, "You are getting more and more shameless." "Same here." Lola Lampelouki thought that Yejing was right. He just wanted to go home, but his way of going home was a little extreme, but it was not wrong. After thinking it through, Lola Lampaluki nodded and said, "Okay, we must be careful when the time comes to avoid bumps and bumps. Even if we don't hurt the people in the palace, it's not good to hurt some flowers and plants." After giving the instructions, he suddenly thought of something, his face froze, and he waved at Yejing and the others. "Wait, things don't seem to be that simple. Come to the aircraft and take a look." "Aircraft? What's wrong?" Yejing and Gray looked at each other, and followed Lola Lampaluki to the aircraft with doubts in their eyes. This aircraft is really not as big as Gray's, nor as luxurious as Gray's. The internal area is very small, with only a cab of a few cubic meters and a toilet. They all felt a little crowded standing in the cockpit. This single-person aircraft was used when I sneaked out of Crescent City a few years ago. It has been abandoned for several years, and the energy in it is almost lost." Lola Lampaluki said. He stretched out his finger and lightly tapped on the energy disk, and a translucent energy column appeared in front of several people. This is an energy column that is more than 10 centimeters long. The energy in it has run out, and it may not be used for much longer. Sudden emergency. Yejing stared at the energy column with a serious expression, and said in a heavy tone, "Can't this energy be replenished?" He has never bought an aircraft, so he naturally doesn't know what the energy of the aircraft is. It should be no different from spiritual energy, right? Before Lola Lampaluki could answer, Gray shook his head. "No, there is no special equipment. The energy burned in the aircraft is spiritual energy with a very high purity. This kind of spiritual energy can only be extracted in special equipment. This is bad." Yejing frowned and murmured. "How long can these energies fly now?" Lola Lampaluki estimated and said, "The time is unclear, but the approximate distance should be from here to the palace. If you are lucky, you may be able to reach it. If you are unlucky, you will be a little short of the distance." Yejing asked, "What will happen after the energy is exhausted?" Lola Lampaluki said, "It will fall." Yejing, Why do I have a very strong sense of bad luck? This script is so familiar. It seems that I have seen it somewhere. No, it should be just an illusion, right? After comforting himself in his heart, Yejing fell into deep thought. In fact, there is nothing wrong with them going to the palace. They just go to see the excitement. They really don't have to go. Even now, turning back to the Magic City will not cause any loss. It's just that if I go back now, I feel a little unwilling. After all, we have come to this step, and there is only one step left to the end. Now whoever turns around and leaves, no one will be willing. Just treat it as a game. Gray's scrapped aircraft is money. I have spent Krypton gold, but I uninstalled the game without completing it. Who can bear this? If you are unlucky, you will fall into the palace. This is dangerous, dangerous to the palace. But what does this have to do with them? This has nothing to do with us. Yejing suddenly looked at Lola Lampaluki with a very strange look, which made him numb all over. It is best if nothing happens. Isn't he the best scapegoat? If the sky falls, there will be a tall person to support it, so what is there to be afraid of? Good brother, if the plane really crashes during the ceremony, the rest will be left to you. These words are just what Yejing thinks in his heart. Some things are better to understand, and there is no need to say them out loud, which is not good for anyone. After thinking about the feasibility for a while, Yejing smiled very brightly at Lola Lampaluki. Actually, we are all lucky, right? Yes, you are right. Lola Lampaluki was made uncomfortable by Yejing's smile, and she forced a smile and said, "Then, how about this? This is a question mark." However, Yejing changed it into a period. "Then, how about this? This day is a big day for the moon. From the establishment of New Moon City to now, there has been more than 100 years of history. In the past 100 years, hundreds of thousands or even millions of people have been sent to the moon to open up wasteland and build new moon city. There are countless inexhaustible resources every year to ensure the establishment of new moon city. Then, more than 100 years of resources have raised such an ungrateful person. The Federation is in pain. But no matter how bitter or aggrieved it is, it has to bite its teeth and swallow it. Even if it cries, it has to cry in the bed at night. In any case, they are all human beings. Since the Federation cannot send people to destroy them, it can only send people to bless them. Originally, it was planned to ask the three Disasters Realm semi-saints of the Imperial City to take some time to visit the New Moon Imperial City, take a look around, and offer the blessing of the Blue Star. Unfortunately, the big guy suddenly had something to do, so he postponed it temporarily. Except for the three Disasters Realm big guys, the others are not very deterrent. What the Blue Star has, the moon also has. Then I can only offer ordinary blessings. Then, the King Li, one of the 5 permanent chairmen of the Federal Council, came. King Li is a rare person on Blue Star who has both political and spiritual talents, and is also a big boss standing at the top of the power on Blue Star. King Li, one of the permanent members of the Federal Council, a big boss at the top of the extraordinary realm, is only one step away from becoming a saint. Maybe this year, maybe in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, he will be the big daddy of the 3 Disasters realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 309. King Li is not actually the best person to offer blessings to the moon. Because he is a very bold advocate of foreign war. He acts very radically and his fighting style is extremely violent. He is also one of the few big guys on Blue Star who fights against alien races every year. In the eyes of King Li, the happiest thing is probably fighting. He feels uncomfortable if he doesn't fight for a day. When he is in a good mood, he will break through the void and go to a piece of alien planet fragments. No matter which race it is, he will not say hello and just go up and fight. When he is in a bad mood, he will randomly pick an alien race to cause trouble. After eating too much at noon, he will treat an alien race as a battle digestion tablet. On his birthday, he will take the whole family to the alien race to break the sky. On every festive day, he will go to the alien territory near Blue Star for a stroll. King Li also knows that wildfires cannot be extinguished, and spring breeze will blow and it will grow again. Every time he came to the alien territory, he only fought and killed very gently, and was very merciful. After a while, the aliens recovered with their super breeding ability. Then, King Li went again. It went on and on. Thanks to King Li, many small alien forces near Blue Star, which were not led by top masters, either moved away from Blue Star or merged into their own alien forces. Such a domineering and unreasonable peak of the extraordinary realm, King Li personally came to the New Moon Palace, and I really don't know what kind of waves will be rolled up. Although he may not attack his own people, it is estimated that he will embarrass the New Moon Imperial City. February 15, 9 a.m. The founding ceremony of the New Moon Empire was held in the main hall of the palace. At that time, the officials who had been assigned to manage the New Moon Empire entered first, followed by the nobles, and finally the VIPs from various places. Officials and nobles who originally belonged to the New Moon Empire would sit on the right, while VIPs from other places would sit on the left. 9:10. The Secretary of State, who was in charge of the affairs of the New Moon Empire, came in with officials of all sizes who were qualified to enter the palace. 9:20. All the nobles above the rank of Earl of the Moon walked in with dignity, most of them were middle-aged men, and only a few were young masters or daughters of nobles. As the backbone of the New Moon Empire, the faces of the nobles were filled with smiles and pride, and they were waiting for this day to come. On the right, after the officials and nobles took their seats, the front row near the main hall stage was still empty. 9:30. A dozen boys and girls in formal dresses came out from the backstage. Among these people, the oldest was only 14 years old. This is the royal family. The descendants left by the Lord of New Moon City himself. A dozen children? Oh, oh, oh. I am not wronged for my youthful madness. I just don't know who should be handed over to the huge harem. 9:40. The distinguished guests who attended the founding ceremony of the New Moon Empire came in and found their seats according to their seat numbers. A rough look at the people who came to watch the ceremony showed that there should be hundreds of people. Most of these people were forces that had contacts with the New Moon Imperial City, and a few were forces that were preparing to establish diplomatic relations, including Jizukiu. Jizukiu rarely wore a formal suit. After he walked into the main hall, he subconsciously glanced at the magnificent hall. When he found that he did not see Yejing and others, he secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it's good that they didn't come. The time is about to come. It is estimated that they can't come in even if they want to. That's good, just watch the excitement quietly. In addition to these Blue Star people, even the Jupiter elves who recently established diplomatic relations with the moon also came from the World Tree. The beautiful appearance, slender figure, and iconic ears made people look sideways. Although he is a male elf. 9:50. The news media from the Moon and Blue Star entered the main hall. They were only used to spread the fact that the Crescent Moon Empire was established. They were not very useful. They were not even given seats. They could only stand at the back of the hall, holding cameras, and waiting. It was at this time Yejing and his team started the aircraft that was running out of fuel and drove towards the palace. 10 o'clock. On time. A pleasant symphony sounded on both sides of the hall. The intense and rapid music shook everyone's heart. Everyone, stand up. This is etiquette. Whether it is the royal family or the VIPs in the hall, everyone stood up and looked solemnly at the big stage in front of them. On the golden stage, there was only an imperial chair symbolizing the throne. Whoever sat on it would be the supreme ruler of the Crescent Moon Empire. The music was ups and downs and exciting. When everyone stood up, 2 teams of 10 golden knights slowly walked out from the side of the hall. The steps of the golden knights seemed to be stepping on everyone's heart, and the atmosphere in the hall suddenly condensed. The 10 golden knights were divided into 2 teams, with black and gold spears standing in front of their chests, stopping 1 meter away from the throne. Just when all the procedures were ready, the Emperor of the Crescent Moon Empire, who was about to take the throne, the protagonist of this time, walked out from the back. The second prince wore a purple and gold imperial robe, a golden crown on his head, and held the staff of power. Under the stunned gaze of everyone, he walked towards the throne. Just when he was about to sit on the throne, a scream suddenly interrupted him. Wait, wait, wait. Second prince. Why you? Where is the eldest prince? For a moment, there was no sound in the hall, and the sound of music stopped. The person who interrupted the process was a beautiful princess in the royal family. She is the eldest princess of the Crescent Empire and the sister of the eldest prince Lola Lamperouki. She is 23 years old this year. The eldest princess raised her white and tender arms with colorful decorations high, interrupting all the processes. She stared at the second prince with incredible eyes and said in shock, "How could it be you? What did you do to my brother?" The second prince glanced around the VIP seats and found that except for a few people who looked confused, the others looked like they were watching the fun. He suddenly bared his white teeth, looked at the eldest princess, and said with a smile, "The eldest brother has gone to pursue his dream, and I will take over the Crescent Empire." Nonsense. The eldest princess said coldly, "You are only 15 years old, How can you control the entire Crescent Empire? That's right. The second prince's name is Gaya Lamperouki, and he is 15 years old this year. Gaya Lamperouki shrugged his shoulders, and pointed the staff of power in his hand, which symbolized supreme power, at all the nobles and officials on the right side of the hall, as well as the Secretary of State at the front, and said with a confident and arrogant expression, "I have the support of all the nobles, hundreds of ministers working together, and the Secretary of State and teacher helping me. Why can't I support the Crescent Empire? That is to say, Yejing and the others are not here, otherwise one can conclude from this sentence alone that this person is 10,000 times more reliable than Lola Lamperouki. Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 310. What kind of person is your brother, the second prince? On the aircraft, Gray asked this question. Little brother. After Lola Lamperouki thought for a while, her expression straightened, her eyes stared at the curious onlookers, and she said in a serious tone, "His name is Gaya Lamperouki, he is a genius. A true genius." Genius. Gray chuckled and said disdainfully, "I've seen a lot of geniuses. What kind of geniuses are there not on Blue Star or in the Demon City?" This is true. Magic City is the second largest city in Blue Star and the first economic center. There is no shortage of talented elites among them, especially those who have talents, resources, connections, and means. Even when they saw it, Jizuki was one of them, and the Black God from the Black God Association was one of them. He had already received his destiny at a young age and had accumulated countless achievements. Not to mention those elites who have never been in the Demon City and have been practicing in the Interstellar all year round. How can a prince who has never stepped off the moon since he was a genius be so talented? He was disdainful in his heart, but he was too embarrassed to say it in front of Laura Lamperouki, so he held up the cup covertly and took a sip of water. In his eyes, both he and Yejing can become elites. It's different. Lola Lamperouki shook her head solemnly and said, "My brother has been practicing the top skill New Moon since he was a child. He absorbs the energy of the moon for his own use day after day and year after year. He is only 15 years old this year. He is already a strong man at the 5th level of Destiny Realm. Moreover, the moon is still his home field, and the moon is constantly reborn. As long as he is on the moon, even those at the peak of the Destiny Realm may not be able to defeat him." Gray, who was originally indifferent, heard Lola Lamperouki tell his brother's age, and he spurted out a mouthful of water without swallowing. "How old do you think your brother is?" Gray said with a shocked look on his face. He thought he heard wrongly. Not only Gray, but also Yejing, who was just listening to the story, suddenly turned his head, looking extremely surprised. "How old?" 15. Will he become the emperor of the Crescent Empire at the age of 15? Darling, this is really incredible. Is this still a genius? This is obviously a monster. 15. Lola Lamperouki said proudly, as if she was the one who shocked them all. 15 years old. Gray swallowed and hurriedly took back what he had said before. What was he doing when he was 15? Traveling around and doing nothing. Live a lazy life every day. Look at this person, at the age of 15, he is still underage, and now he is sitting on the throne of the Crescent Empire. Not only that, but he is already at the 5th level of the Destiny Realm at the age of 15. Is this difficult even for someone with talent at the top of the pyramid? Unparalleled talent, coupled with inexhaustible resources, and years of hard training, finally created a 15-year-old monster. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Laura Lamperouki with a strange expression. Why is this person a 5? What's that look in your face? Lola Lamperouki shook her fist at Gray and said, "Don't look at me like that. Although I am 25 years old, I am still in the Destiny Realm. I am still capable of bullying you." Gray shrank his neck. This was true, it was very easy to hit him. You are 25 years old and your brother is 15 years old. Why is there such a big gap? Yejing asked curiously. Because in the past 10 years, my father has not been on the moon anymore. Lola Lamperouki sighed, as if reminiscing, and said in a melancholy tone, not only me, but even my younger brothers and sisters have never seen my father. He is either at work or working on building the moon. Decades ago, there was no news from the moon for 10 years. If it hadn't been for a letter sent back from him after a while, I would have thought he was dead. Lola Lamperouki mentioned her father who had died outside the territory, and there was not much affection in her tone. It seems that the affection has faded over time, and it was more about reverence and admiration. Having said this, a smile appeared on his face unconsciously. Actually, my desire to travel to the Sea of Stars was also influenced by my father. The aircraft was in automatic stance, and even Aizayakui looked curious. How do you say this? You may not know, but many people in the upper echelons of Blue Star know that in the 10 years since my father disappeared, a direct sea route to Pluto was opened for Blue Star. Pluto! Yejing and Gray exclaimed in unison. The two looked at each other, as if they had noticed something. Yes, just as they thought. Lola Lamperouki said, the distance from Blue Star to Pluto is very long, but it is not unreachable. If there is a direct connection, it will only take a few months to reach it. However, direct access is impossible. The road to the Star Sea is full of difficulties. There are many alien domains, and the monsters wandering in the Star Sea are even more cruel and bloody. The difficulty is no less than 99 and 81. It was my father who took his people and spent 10 years to open up a Star Sea route from Blue Star to Pluto. As you may think, this Star Sea route is the path taken by the first expeditionary force, which has been making a lot of noise recently. In this vast sea of stars, there is no road. It is because someone left that there is a road. But this short road took 10 years. Everyone was silent. Ji Qingjian, who was still listening to the story, also retracted her smile and fell silent. No one knows what happened in these 10 years. But they know very well that this Star Sea route must be paved with blood and human flesh. I used to often hear the term pioneer of mankind. At that time, I thought how far away it was, just like a legend. But now it seems that maybe it's not that far away, maybe it's around, maybe it's just a certain person, or maybe it's a little story I heard over tea. Not knowing does not mean that there is none, it is hidden silently and unknown. At this moment, Yejing suddenly thought of something Zhou Shuren said a long time ago. What kind of peaceful years are there? It's just that someone is carrying the burden for you. Although the current years of Blue Star are not peaceful, this large degree of tranquility is what the unknown pioneers of mankind have striven for. The Lord of Crescent City opened up a sea route to the stars, and the first expeditionary force went to the edge of the solar system to Pluto. There are also those unknown people who perished on the voyage. This Star Sea route will definitely not be used only once. Because it is a gateway to the outer solar system. The nearest road. Author, do you want to take a trip? Protagonist, no, I don't want to. Author, no, you want. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 311. If they hadn't heard it from Lola Lamperouki, they might never have known it in their lifetime. Yejing and the others stood in awe, and asked solemnly. His name? Lola Lamperouki smiled, a very proud smile. His name is Blue Star Lamperouki, the first practitioner on Blue Star, and the first human on the moon. Blue Star Lamperouki. Yejing silently recited in his heart, and remembered this name deeply in his heart. This is a name that is destined to be recorded in the history of the human race and become a legend. After hearing such a big secret, everyone was very excited, and it took a long time to calm down. They are just eating the resources given by Blue Star now, and they are not capable or qualified to do anything. In this case, Yejing still has a doubt in his heart. Yejing frowned and asked, since the Lord of New Moon City has made such a great contribution, why did the Federation prevent New Moon from establishing a country? This is simply a crime against humanity. Stop. Did it stop? Lola Lampaluki said with a confused look on her face, why didn't I know that the Federation prevented it? Yejing was surprised and said, didn't the Federation secretly prevent New Moon from establishing a country for several years? There are even rumors that the Federation and New Moon City are no longer compatible. Moreover, the Demon City has been in chaos recently, and there will definitely be chaos at the founding ceremony of the New Moon Empire. But no one in our family, no one in New Moon City, died. Lola Lampaluki's words spoke the truth. No one died. Whether it was the nobles of the New Moon Empire or the royal family of the New Moon Empire, no one died. Think about the history of Blue Star, the dynasty changed, and the empire was established outside. What kind of crime was this in ancient times? The whole family was executed. The 9 clans were killed. But no one in our Lampaluki family died. That's right. All survived. But who died during this period of chaos? Dark forces. Black God Society. Looking at the overall situation, it seems that only the people of the dark forces have suffered losses. It seems like. No. This is a play that uses the establishment of the Crescent Empire as an excuse to wipe out the dark forces in the Demon City. Yejing suddenly realized, and at the same time, he couldn't help but shudder in his heart. Oh my God, shit. These people who play politics are really dirty. So in the end, the only one who was kept in the dark was the Black God Society. Yejing's eyes flashed with an unclear look, and he looked at Lola Lampaluki's calm smile. Very silly and naive. Only Chibai would be like this now. He may be naive, but he is definitely not silly. Oh my God, one by one, are their hearts really so dirty? Yejing suppressed the shock in his heart, looked through the screen of the aircraft, and looked in the direction of the New Moon Palace. He breathed a sigh of relief and said, if that's the case, nothing will happen at all, right? After all, we are all family members. You are so naive. Lola Lampaluki looked at Yejing with a look of looking at a fool. I am naive. Yejing pointed at himself with his backhand, looking surprised. Did I say something wrong? How can I be naive? Lola Lampaluki sighed and smiled, as if mocking Yejing's IQ. The Crescent Moon Empire has been established. Although a big reason for this is because of my father's achievements, it has to be acceptable on the surface. If the Federation does not make any statement, what will other forces think? What will the dark forces think? Will they get excited and directly leave Blue Star with their families and people, and find a piece of planetary debris to establish a country? It's hard to say about other forces. After all, their roots are in Blue Star, and they don't have the support of the half-saint of the 3 disasters realm, so they can't have this idea. But the dark forces are different. Although the dark world is a mess, they have their own emperor. Once the emperor of the 3 disasters realm speaks, maybe they can really be the same as the Crescent Moon Empire. Yejing. Okay, I'm naive. To be honest, he is not the type of person who uses his brain. So. Lola Lampaluki looked towards the direction of the palace, her eyes calm, and said lightly, at least on the surface, there will definitely be someone who will come to make trouble, and it must be a big shot on Blue Star, the kind of big shot who can deter the villains. Then what will you do? Do you want to be the emperor? Gray couldn't help but interrupt and said. After hearing such a long secret, his mind was confused, and his original idea of becoming an emperor was also blown away. Seeing that they were about to arrive at the palace, what exactly Lola Lampaluki was thinking was very important. Me? Why must it be me? Lola Lampaluki shrugged her shoulders and said with a relaxed look, everyone has their own responsibilities. Since I want to take on the responsibility of the Crescent Empire, just give it to him. I have my own dreams and my own responsibilities. What dream? Lola Lampaluki smiled and said, I am a traveler in the sea of stars. I will spend the rest of my life traveling to every corner of the solar system. I will draw the most perfect star map of the solar system. Everyone has their own responsibilities and inheritance. I will take over the inheritance of the Crescent City Lord and then pass it on. My father spent 10 years to open up a route to Pluto. I am stupid and incompetent, so I will spend 20, 30, or 50 years to open up another route to the Starsea. After saying this, he suddenly paused, and after a few seconds of silence, he said faintly, I will even go to the place outside the solar system where my father has never set foot. Only with great courage can one have the courage to say this. The solar system has been broken for 100 years, and no one has ever walked out of the solar system. Even exploring the mysteries outside the solar system is impossible. It seems that the entire solar system has been blocked and cannot be detected. In the past 100 years, Blue Star has sent countless unmanned probes outside the solar system. But the images sent back are all pitch black. The entire solar system is shrouded in a mysterious black mist. People inside cannot get out, and people outside don't know. What Lola Lampaluki said is an unattainable dream, something that even the half-saints of the three disasters cannot touch. At the same time, after listening to Lola Lampaluki's words, Yejing fell into confusion for the first time since he came to this world. Everyone has their own responsibilities. So what is my responsibility? It is unknown. Time passed, and finally, they arrived at the Crescent Moon Palace. However, they arrived, and someone came earlier than them. The uninvited guest from Blue Star also arrived. A thunder sounded in the sky. The thunder god Li Wang made a brilliant appearance. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bulletin G. Bayet. Chapter 312. Inside the New Moon Palace. Those who knew the inside story kept silent. For them, the New Moon Empire's founding ceremony was just a formality, and they didn't need to intervene at all. The eldest princess who didn't know the inside story was also suppressed by the Secretary of State. The elder who is now the Secretary of State was the first group of old people who arrived on the moon with the New Moon City Lord 100 years ago. He has extraordinary prestige in the entire Moon organization, and almost no one dares to oppose him. Even the princes of the New Moon City Lord were instructed by the elders of the Secretary of State when they were young. The Secretary of State is not only highly respected, but also the top in terms of military power in the New Moon. Like the New Moon City Lord back then, they are all at the peak of the extraordinary realm, and they are only one step away from becoming a saint. However, there is a difference. The Secretary of State consumed too much blood and essence in the early years of fighting. These are irreparable secret treasures of the human body. As a result, the Secretary of State, who is only more than 100 years old this year, has white hair and wrinkles on his face, like an old man with a candle in the wind. If he could go further and enter the three disasters realm, perhaps his lifespan could be extended, but if he remained in the transcendent realm, he would probably not live for many years. It was such a prestigious figure who suppressed the people who had made changes, and the ceremony of the establishment of the Crescent Moon Empire continued. At this time, Gaya Lampaluki, the second prince of the Crescent Moon Empire, had already sat on the throne symbolizing the throne. Although his face was young, his eyebrows and feathers exuded a faint solemn and sacred color, and there was a faint moonlight behind him. The Secretary of State elder stood up from his seat tremblingly, just like an old man who was staggering, and slowly walked to the imperial platform. In his hand, he held a piece of yellow embroidery. The Secretary of State Elder slowly walked to Gaya Lampaluki, looked at the nobles and guests, and opened the yellow embroidery in his hand. As long as he announced the establishment of the Crescent Moon Empire at this time, the most important part of the ceremony would be completed. Now, all the media and reporters' cameras have been directed to the Secretary of State Elder, waiting for his declaration. The Secretary of State Elder glanced at the crowd with a calm expression, and his old lips slightly opened. The Secretary of State of the New Moon Empire announced that today, new moon. Boom. Suddenly. Before he finished speaking, a thunder suddenly sounded above the 9 heavens outside the imperial court. The sound of thunder was like 1,000 pounds, deafening, like a sky strike, directly hitting the hearts of everyone present, shocking the brain. Boom boom boom. Boom boom boom. Boom boom. Such earth-shaking thunder sounded 9 times, shaking everyone's scalp numb, brain trembling, and fidgeting all over, not knowing what happened. Suddenly, there was a lot of discussion in the imperial court, interrupting the next words of the Secretary of State Elder. Whose thunder is this? Does anyone dare to come here to make trouble? Too presumptuous. 9 thunders of heaven and earth, are they warnings from nature? The 9 thunders made the faces of the people present change drastically. Before they could react, a terrifying pressure like the end of the world came from the imperial court, like a mountain, pressing down on the imperial court. Who dares to be so presumptuous? The Secretary of State looked gloomy, looking at the imperial court with cold eyes, and said with murderous intent. King Li of Blue Star, come to congratulate the establishment of the New Moon Empire. The voice stirred everyone's heart, as if it came from the horizon, illusory. The troublemaker is here. The next second after the voice came, the ceiling above the imperial court suddenly broke, and a purple thunder struck from outside, hitting the center of the hall. The purple thunder was shining, and the purple light completely suppressed the lights in the hall, and everyone couldn't open their eyes. Purple thunder descended from the ceiling of the imperial court, and with it, there was a throne. It was a huge throne 3 feet high and 3 feet wide. The throne was emitting purple gold lightning, and there were several thunder dragons surrounding it, which was very imposing. On the thunder throne, a person sat quietly, a very ordinary person, but a person that made the alien race tremble. He was wearing a dazzling purple robe, and there was a faint thunder in the purple robe. His face was ordinary, but he had a sense of majesty without anger. Such a seemingly ordinary man was the controller of Liwang City. Liwang, who was named Thunder God. Beside Liwang, 4 3-foot purple swords floated, located in the 4 directions of the throne, southeast, northwest, and northeast, like guarding the king, guarding around Liwang. Although Liwang and the Secretary of State of the Crescent Empire were both at the peak of the extraordinary realm, the blood and chi contained in their bodies were simply incomparable. King Li's blood is as broad and deep as the sea. He is strong and middle-aged, but his face looks like he is only in his 30s. His potential is many times higher than that of the Secretary of State Elder. In fact, from his steady and quiet breath, it can be felt that he is only 1 step away from the 3 disasters. The Thunder Throne just floats above the imperial court, surrounded by thunder for several meters, forming its own domain. King Li rests half of his chin on one hand, his arm resting on the armrest of the throne, his whole body leaning against the throne, his eyes focused like a god, looking down at the Secretary of State Elder with a calm look, and said lightly. King Li of Blue Star, congratulations on the establishment of the Crescent Moon Empire. Looking down on others. He is arrogant and unruly. But he has the capital to be arrogant. There was a big hole right above the imperial court. King Li sat calmly on the thunder throne, floating in the air, with no intention of coming down. The appearance of King Li made the Secretary of State Elder so angry that he was fuming. He was about to roll up his sleeves to fight with King Li, but was stopped by Gaya Lampaluki behind him. Gaya Lampaluki shook his head secretly at the Secretary of State Elder, stopped his behavior, raised his head, and looked at King Li in the air. "Can your Highness King Li come down to talk?" Gaya Lampaluki smiled very politely, as if he didn't mind King Li's powerless behavior at all. "There is nothing to say between this king and the brat. Either someone comes to beat this king down, or leave this king alone." King Li said in a calm tone, and his eyes never focused on Gaya Lampaluki. "You, insolent!" The Secretary of State Elder was furious and glared at King Li. His clothes floated slightly, and the spiritual energy in his body was running wildly, as if he was going to release a big move in the next second. "No." Gaya Lampaluki stopped the Secretary of State Elder and said lightly, "Don't worry about him, continue. Why are all of them passive skills?" Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 313. Other side. Lola Lamparuki, who had regained her normalcy, began to brag about his younger brother to Yejing and others again. "Actually, if my brother had been born a few years earlier, I guess everything would have been different. Is your brother really only 15 years old? Is it really him who is waiting for the throne in the palace now?" Yejing said with a look of disbelief. He said that at the age of 15 he had to manage a large planet. Even travel novels would not dare to write this. "Of course." Lola Lamparuki nodded and confirmed, "Otherwise, how can we say that my brother is a once-in-a-century genius? Do you know that there is a plan in the Federation called the Future Human Elite Plan? It is locked in the Federal Archives in the Magic City." Yejing shook his head. How could he know such a high-end thing? He didn't even know his name. Jizuku had already filled it into the plan. He had never heard of it, but Gray's eyes lit up and he asked hurriedly, "Is the archive you are talking about just established in recent years, the archives about the future?" Lola Lamparuki nodded and said with a proud expression, "That archives records all the young elites of mankind in the entire solar system, arranged according to serial numbers. My brother, Gaya Lamparuki's sequence, is in the top 10. Damn it. Sorry." Gray looked shocked. How could that little devil be so cruel? These are the young elites of the entire solar system. Not just a magic city, a blue star, or a moon, but the entire solar system. How many young people are there in the entire solar system? Hundreds of millions. Or more than a billion. They don't know. But they know how terrifying it is to be ranked in the top 10 among such a huge number. Yejing and Gray were shocked, but they didn't know that they were also in the sequence. Although the rank in the sequence is 4 digits. Just when the two of them were so shocked that they didn't know what to say, Ai Zayakui, who was observing the front, suddenly interrupted. "It seems like something happened." "Something happened?" Lola Lamparuki, who was still bragging, and the others were stunned for a moment, then hurriedly looked in the direction of the palace, and their expressions suddenly changed. A hole was opened in the imperial court. Directly above the Crescent Palace, black clouds pressed down on the city, threatening to destroy it. Thunder shook and rolled in, covering the entire sky above the palace. In the black clouds, countless thunder snakes were surging, dazzling the eyes. A purple light shines in the dark clouds, as if just waiting for a command. A thunderbolt will strike towards the palace. This was not what surprised them the most. What surprised them most was that a hole was opened in the imperial court where the Crescent Empire's founding ceremony was being held. "My dear, who is so bold? You dare to walk through the ceiling? Can't you go through the door?" Yejing looked at the hole in the imperial court not far away and couldn't help but mutter to himself. "It must be Blue Star's troublemaker," Lola Lamparuki said calmly. He didn't show a trace of worry, as if he didn't care at all. Yejing glanced at him sideways and asked doubtfully, "Aren't you worried that a fight has started inside?" Lola Lamparuki shook her head. "No, my brother is not a man who acts on impulse. He will definitely endure it." Then, it is never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. 10 years. For Gaya Lamparuki, it's really not that far away. Since Laura Lampaluki said so, it means it's okay. Yejing Song said in one tone, then let's stop right in front of the imperial court. If we have you, we can walk from the main hall and no one will dare to stop us. Laura Lamparuki responded. The trouble I'm talking about is not with the imperial court, but with us. Just when Yejing was relaxing, Ai Zayakui suddenly spoke. She pointed at the energy bar and said calmly, I mean, there is no energy. Yejing, dot. Gray, dot. Lola Lamprucci, dot. What? No energy. The three of them were immediately shocked and quickly turned their attention to the energy bar of the aircraft. Sure enough, there is no energy. At this moment, a red light and warning sound suddenly flashed inside the aircraft. After a slight tremor, it began to fall. Isn't it? Another plane crash in the palace? Yejing's eyes widened, and he trembled through the monitor. Where are we going to crash? In the open space or on the roof? Gray seemed to be frightened, his face turned pale, and he said in a trembling voice, it seems to be the hole above the imperial court. This time it's really hopeless. Ah! Help! Find a way. Is there any way? Gray, can't you fly? Hurry up and hold up the aircraft. I'm sorry. You should be treated as a human being. It's late. It's too late. I saw the aircraft swaying, and by coincidence, it fell through the hole that King Li had broken before. Ying ying ying. What a coincidence. The Secretary of State and the Elder announced that the Crescent Empire is official. Boom. There was another loud noise, and the aircraft hit directly in the center of the imperial court. Black smoke rose from Zirazilla, interrupting the words of the Secretary of State and Elder once again. The Secretary of State's white hair stood up straight, his eyes were wide open with bloodshot eyes, and he shouted angrily at King Li in mid-air. Are you guys from Blue Star going to stop? I'm going to fight you. King Li, dot. King Li's eyes flashed with surprise, and he said, no. I should be the only one here. As soon as he said this, the Secretary of State Elder instantly burst out with a strong killing intent, staring at the aircraft emitting black smoke with his eyes fixed, and his killing intent was almost solidified. Since it's not from Blue Star, it must be the real troublemaker. Jizukiu, who was sitting obediently in the VIP seat, suddenly twitched his mouth. Why do I feel an ominous premonition? By the way, where are Yejing and the others? The next second, he knew where Yejing and the others were. Gaya Lampaluki, who was behind the Secretary of State Elder, frowned and looked at the fragmented and dilapidated aircraft. His eyebrows suddenly raised. How come this aircraft looks like the one that my eldest brother took when he ran away from home? By the way, where is my eldest brother? The next second, he knew where my eldest brother was. The black smoke dissipated, and Yejing coughed tremblingly, and was the first to get out of the aircraft, followed by Gray and Ji Qinjian. When he saw someone escape from the aircraft, the Secretary of State Elder's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and raised his hand to point at Yejing and the others. Die. Not good. Yejing, who had just escaped from the aircraft, immediately felt a strong threat of death, and subconsciously pulled Lola Lampaluki out of the aircraft and blocked him in front of him. The eldest prince. Brother. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 314. How could Yejing withstand the finger of the Secretary of State Elder? If this finger really stabbed him, he would be crushed to pieces on the spot. In a hurry, Yejing pulled out Lola Lampaluki, who was hiding in the aircraft and refused to show her head, and blocked him in front of him. Although this pull was not a big deal, it caused an uproar in the imperial court. Gaya Lampaluki, who had been obedient like a half-doll, suddenly stood up from the throne and said in shock, "Royal brother." He also secretly glared at one of the golden knights beside him. The golden knight lowered his head with a guilty look on his face. It was him who went to chase Yejing and the eldest prince last night, but Yejing played a trick on him halfway. Not only did he not bring the eldest prince back, but he also made the headlines for almost streaking. It was not only the knight in golden armor who lowered his head, but also Jizuki, who was sitting in the VIP seat. When he saw Yejing coming out of the aircraft, he felt that something was wrong. Sure enough, Ai Zyakui and Ji Kinjian also came out. He was afraid that Yejing and the others would see him and call him without knowing the occasion, which would ruin the meal. So, he also covered his face and lowered his head, cursing in his heart. What the hell is going on? Lola Lampaluki glared at Yejing fiercely, and Yejing gave him a very innocent expression, indicating that it was time for him to go on stage. The Secretary of State Elder retracted his finger, looked at Lola Lampaluki with a gloomy face, and said in a bad tone, "Grand Prince, can you explain it to me?" Hearing the Secretary of State Elder calling him, Lola Lampaluki trembled all over, as if a kitten saw a tiger, extremely frightened. He was taught by the Secretary of State Elder since he was a child. He is his elder and his teacher. Don't elders beat children every day? Don't teachers beat disciples every day? Combining the two identities, the Secretary of State Elder is his childhood shadow. The Secretary of State Elder beat him, and even the Crescent City Lord didn't care. So when he saw the Secretary of State Elder, he didn't even dare to breathe. This. Lola Lampaluki smiled awkwardly, her face was about to cry, racking her brains, and uttered a sentence with difficulty, which almost scared Yejing and others to death. Actually, I let them kidnap me. Damn it! You are diverting the blame. Yejing looked at Lola Lampaluki with a frightened face, and trembled secretly in his heart. Big brother, don't say this nonsense. This is going to kill people. The Secretary of State's fierce eyes turned directly to Yejing and Gray, who was shrinking his neck beside him, and said expressionlessly, "Little friend from Blue Star, is this the case?" The huge power pressed down on Yejing like a tide, making him breathless and sweating. Yejing didn't know how to answer, and hurriedly winked at Lola Lampaluki. However, Lola replied him with a silent verbal message. "Don't panic, I'll save you later." Are they abandoned just like that? Yejing had no choice but to bite the bullet and said, "Sir, in fact, we are sending His Royal Highness the Crown Prince back. The aircraft broke down in the middle of the flight, so we had to make an emergency landing." "Have you finished?" the Secretary of State's Elder said expressionlessly. Yejing said, "Have you finished?" "Okay." After the Secretary of State's Elder nodded, he waved his hand and said coldly, "Come on. Take him out and chop him up. Damn you old bastard. This is not what was agreed." Yejing hurriedly looked at Lola Lampaluki. Lola was also sweating profusely. He gritted his teeth, stamped his feet, and shouted, "Wait! Wait!" Two voices. The first voice was from Lola, and the second voice? It was from King Li. King Li, who was originally watching the show, suddenly interrupted and waited for the next move of the Secretary of State Elder. Lola, who was still brave a second ago, shrank back like a turtle after hearing King Li's voice. "King Li, what do you mean by this?" the Secretary of State Elder said in a cold tone. "Ha ha ha ha." King Li laughed loudly and said, "These people are actually the younger generation of my family. They were just a step slower when they came." After that, King Li looked at Gray with interest and smiled, "You are the eldest son of the Edward family, right? I met you 2 years ago." "King Li? King Li?" Gray, who had been shivering with his head down, suddenly looked up. When he saw the King Li sitting on the Thunder Throne, 2 lines of tears flowed down in an instant. It was as if he had seen a living ancestor. His body softened and he knelt directly on the ground. "It's me. I'm Grey Edward. Grandpa King Li, save us." Although King Li looks only in his 30s, he is one of the first practitioners after the solar system was broken. He is over 100 years old and is of the same generation as his grandfather. The Edward family has had a friendship with King Li City for decades, and his grandfather has also known King Li for decades. The two sides have good business exchanges every year. Just like last year, when Gray went to Lonely City, he was received by the Lord of Lihue City. Lola Lampaluki is unreliable. When he saw the Secretary of State Elder, he didn't even dare to fart. He doesn't look like a great prince at all. Oh, by the way, the Crescent Empire has not been established yet, and he is just the son of a city lord. However, when Gray saw King Li, he knew he would not die. With tears of joy, he bowed to King Li. King Li looked at Gray, who bowed to him. His mouth twitched slightly, and he raised his index finger slightly, lifting Gray's body in the air. "Remember, don't call me Grandpa in the future. I am different from the old immortal in your family. Call me Uncle." "Yes, Uncle King Li," Gray said very obediently. After dealing with Gray, King Li looked at Yejing again and asked, "Are you Yejing who helped Xiaohui clean up the mess last year?" "Xiaohui? Who is Xiaohui?" Yejing was confused at first, but when he remembered the name of the burly city lord, he suddenly realized it. After respectfully bowing to King Li, he said honestly, "It was the kid." "Good. Not bad, that thing was done well." King Li said with approval, saying it was good. That thing was actually very serious. A piece of Omega sublight fell directly from the sky to the Lonely City, just like hundreds of nuclear bombs. When it fell, the whole city was reduced to ashes. No one in the city was spared. At that time, there were still hundreds of thousands of people in the Lonely City who had not been evacuated. If all these hundreds of thousands of citizens were killed by the explosive energy of the Omega sublight, as the Lord of the Lonely City, Li Hui would definitely die with his entire family, and even his 3 clans might be exterminated. Once that happened, as the main family, Li Wangcheng would also suffer a great disaster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Bouletin G. Bayet. Chapter 315. Fortunately, Yejing stood up at that time and used some unknown method to destroy the piece of Omega sublight. No one reacted at the time, but it became clear later. The matter is over, whether it was transferred to the universe or kept in their own pocket, they don't care. After all, Yejing actually saved hundreds of thousands of lives that time. And he also saved Li Hui, and Li Wangcheng. They all owed Yejing a big favor. In fact, at this point, there is nothing wrong with Yejing. The subsequent small planet fragments fell, although the impact was far-reaching, but it did not cause any casualties and only destroyed a small city. After this incident, the name Yejing appeared in the ears of federal senior officials for the first time, hiding a foreshadowing for future file sequences. Such a big thing happened at that time. Although Li Hui kept his mouth shut and did not let Yejing go out and talk nonsense, he could not hide it from King Li, so he reported all the events to King Li. It was also at that time that King Li remembered Yejing's name. "Okay, you all go to the VIP seats, and that little girl, stop hiding." King Li smiled lightly. "Little girl?" After King Li finished speaking, he was pressed on the ground under the aircraft. A shadow came out, transformed into a human form, and bowed to King Li. After reading the old story, the Secretary of State said calmly, "Since they are King Li's descendants, they must be well disciplined. If this were in Crescent City, I would beat them all over the ground." You think so? First Prince. Lola Lamperouki looked fearful and nodded repeatedly, yes, yes, teacher, you are right. Right? Why don't you come over quickly? The elder Secretary of State glared at him and said. Yes, yes, yes. Laura Lamperouki nodded in response, pushed Yejing and others away, and walked cautiously towards the direction of the Secretary of State. His actions also affected everyone's attention and hearts. When the farce started, the media reporters had already turned off their cameras. When they arrived, they had already received orders from their superiors. No matter what happens, just shoot the Crescent Empire ceremony. Even reporters who didn't understand what it meant before now understand it. After the farce ended, Lola Lamperouki's movement deeply touched the hearts of everyone present, and their cameras also followed. The nobles stood up. The royal family stood up. The officials stood up. Everyone in the VIP seats stretched their necks to watch the show. The Emperor of the Crescent Empire, the eldest Prince Laura Lamperouki is the first heir, and Gaia Lamperouki is the second heir. If Lola Lamperouki doesn't show up, Gaia Lamperouki will naturally become the emperor. This is also a script that has been arranged long ago. However, now that Lola Lamperouki has appeared, all that is unknown. All the choices lie with Laura alone. Is he heading to the throne? Or heading towards the royal area? Gaia Lamperouki also stood up from the throne, with a hint of nervousness on his slightly immature face. He shrank his fists inside the royal robe and clenched them tightly. Every step Lola Lamperouki took touched the hearts of everyone present. Step by step, he was only one step away from the imperial stage and the royal area. Suddenly, he stopped. He raised his head, looked at Gaia Lamperouki, and asked. Why don't you give me food? Gaia Lamperouki twitched the corner of his mouth. He naturally understood what his brother meant and smiled awkwardly. I forgot. Good. Laura Lamperouki nodded with a smile, turned around, and sat next to her sister in the royal area. As soon as he turned around, most people present secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It was okay. There are enough things going on, but if something happens, my heart can't stand it anymore. After seeing Laura sit down, Gaia Lamperouki also wiped the cold sweat from his head and sat on the throne again. Go on. Yes. Again. The Secretary of State and the Elder stood in front of the throne, preparing to read out. Yejing and the others quietly walked back along the edge of the imperial court, for fear of attracting others' attention. He still owes us payment. Ai Zyakui was still muttering in a low voice, exuding her dissatisfaction. She would show this attitude only when it was about money. Stop talking. Wait until you find a time to ask for it. Yejing said. They quietly walked to the last row of the VIP seats and found a deserted corner to sit down. There were 4 people in a row, but 5 people sat down. As soon as Yejing sat down, someone patted his shoulder and turned to look. Then I saw Jizuki's face that was so dark that it turned purple. Yejing's heart skipped a beat, and he forced a smile on his face. Chief, good morning. Jizuki said expressionlessly, okay, great, I was almost scared to death by you. He glared hard at Ai Zyakui, who lowered her head and remained silent. He glared hard at Ji Qingjian again, and Ji Qingjian cried instantly, with crystal-like tears in her big crystal eyes, as if they were about to fall in the next second. Then there was nothing he could do. These 2 girls were adopted by the leader from outside, and of course, so was he. The leader is not at home all year round, and the elder brother is like a father, so he is the one who disciplines Ai Zyakui and Ji Qingjian. But what? Once they make a mistake, one of them lowers his head and does not speak, and the other pretends to cry, which makes him helpless. Then he transferred his anger to the culprits, Yejing and Gray. Jizuki looked at Yejing and Gray and said in a calm tone, in a while, come back to the magic city with me honestly. If there is anything, You will take care of it? Yejing raised his eyebrows, and a bad premonition rose in his heart. He asked cautiously, "What is it?" Jizuki glanced at him and said, "I don't know yet. You have been too idle recently. You make trouble when you are idle. It's better for me to find something for you to do directly." "Okay." Yejing and Gray looked at each other and smiled bitterly. On the other side, the Secretary of State Elder finally announced that it was over. The New Moon Empire was officially established today, and the first emperor is Gaya Lampaluki. In an instant, the whole audience stood up. Everyone bowed to Gaya Lampaluki. Gaya Lampaluki stood up slowly and looked at the crowd solemnly. After a few seconds of silence, he raised the imperial staff in his hand and said loudly, "For the human race, for Blue Star, for the new moon." The ceremony was over. Finally, the New Moon Empire, which had been delayed for 10 years, was officially established at this moment. Very simple. It's done. After everyone sat down, King Li, who was sitting on the Thunder Throne in the air, was about to come down and present the gift from the Blue Star Federation, but suddenly heard the emergency alert sound of his mobile phone. After picking it up and taking a look, his face changed instantly, pale and bloodless. He saw 2 messages, piercing his heart. The first expeditionary army returned, with heavy casualties, and almost all of them were wiped out. Only 13 people of the first expeditionary army escaped. Urgent, King Li, return quickly. The murderous intent condensed from King Li and soared into the sky. 9 days of thunder surged around, and the 4 thunder swords in the southeast, northwest, and northeast hummed as if they were about to be unsheathed. Thunder roared loudly, and purple thunder struck King Li's body. At this moment, it was as if the thunder god was alive. The next second, King Li didn't have time to do anything. Under the stunned gaze of everyone, he carried the Thunder Throne and flew away from the top of the imperial court. I saw someone say that it was too long. That's because I didn't know how to write it. To be honest, this is the first time I have written so many chapters. To be honest, the outline has been written for a long time. Why are all of them passive skills? Author, Buletin G. Bayet. Chapter 316. When King Li left, the entire VIP table was notified. The same was true for Jizuki. His cell phone also rang. It was the tavern uncle who reported to him. When he saw the message, his expression suddenly changed and he stood up suddenly. Everyone in the VIP seats was like this. Some people even turned around and left the imperial court without even saying hello, and left in a hurry. What happened? Yejing's heart trembled. From the looks of it, something big must have happened. Otherwise, how could King Li and these VIPs from Blue Star turn around and leave so rudely? At some point, Jizuki's eyes turned red, and he resisted the crystal tears in his eyes from falling. "Look," he said in a trembling voice, then threw the phone casually, not to Yejing, but to Ai Zayakui. Ai Zayakui felt a strong bad feeling in her heart and frowned at the message sent by the tavern uncle. At this time, Yejing, Gray, and Ji Kinjian also came over. You don't know if you don't look at it, but when you look at it, you will explode. Emergency return. The first expeditionary army returned, with a total of 7,353 practitioners. Nearly the entire army was wiped out, and only 13 people escaped. Among them, the leader, deputy leader and others died outside the territory. Come home soon. The sky is falling. Who does the leader and deputy leader refer to? The boss who sees the dark moon. Jizuki, Ji Kinjian's adoptive father, and even most of the orphans in Ujianhei were adopted by the leader and deputy leader. Even Ai Zayakui was brought back by the leader to teach the method of cultivation after carrying a debt of 100 million spirit stones. This trip with the first expeditionary force to Pluto, unexpectedly, everyone died. In an instant, Ji Qingjian's eyes went dark and she fainted in Ai Xiaokui's arms. Ai Xiaokui was not much better, her brain buzzed and went blank, her lips trembled and she was speechless. A teacher is a person who teaches, accepts karma and resolves doubts. To her, the leader and deputy leader are teachers and elders. Unlike Ai Xiaokui and the others, although Yejing and Gray had no feelings for the leader, they knew after seeing the news that something big had happened. What is the lineup of the first expeditionary force? More than a dozen Transcendent Realm bosses led the team, among which the commander was a peak expert in the Destiny Realm. Hundreds of Destiny Realm followers followed to protect the way, and thousands of underground palace practitioners opened the way. More than 7,000 people aboard 103 of Blue Star's most high-tech large-scale interstellar warships, which are equipped with countless energy cannons. Antimatter cannon, electromagnetic gun, nuclear fission attack, domain mental interference, space destruction attack, aura nullification magnetic field, Omega light attack. Wait. There are so many powerful people, coupled with Blue Star's most high-tech attack methods, plus tens of billions of spiritual stone resources. This first expeditionary force is enough to sweep through any single alien race in the solar system. Even if there are half-saints from other races who have begun to break the three disasters, they dare not touch the edge. This is an invincible expeditionary force, and the road they are going to is also the Star Sea route that was opened up by the Lord of Crescent City for 10 years. There must be no obstacles along the way, just go with the wind. Then why was the entire army wiped out? What happened on Pluto? What did you encounter on the way back? Perhaps only the 13 people who escaped knew it. A real breakthrough. The destruction of this expeditionary force meant that 1% of the high-end combat power on Blue Star disappeared. It even took a ride on 100 large starship battleships. What's the reward? There are definitely rewards. Yejing and Gray look solemn and worried. Perhaps, Blue Star's peaceful days on the surface are gone. Right now. Jizukiu's cell phone rang again. Jizukiu, who looked gloomy, suppressed the grief in his heart, took the phone back from the dull-eyed Ai Xiaokui, and took a look. The federal emergency meeting was held in the Magic City, with a limit of 5 permanent directors. 109 directors arrived within 2 hours, and those who were late would have their director status revoked. Director Jizukiu, come back quickly. This is the second time he has received an urgent return message, requiring him to return to Blue Star Magic City within 2 hours. There is no time to delay. Jizukiu grabbed the phone, glanced at Yejing and others, and said in a stern tone, "You guys, return to the Demon City immediately, there is no room for mistakes." After that, he turned around and walked towards the outside of the Imperial Court. In 2 hours, he didn't have time to take Yejing and the others back together, and he couldn't even keep up with the speed of the aircraft. He himself can only jump from the moon and then fly back. This. Yejing looked at Ai Xiaokui, who was in a sluggish state, with an expression of embarrassment. He couldn't help but patted her shoulder and comforted her, "Stop thinking about it now. Let's go back and talk about it first." Everyone was dead, but he couldn't say the words, "Are you okay?" After a few seconds of silence, Ai Xiaokui responded in a low voice. "How do we get back?" Gray asked in a low voice. The aircraft they were traveling in had exploded when they arrived, and he was unable to carry the 3 of them back to the Demon City. After thinking for a while, Yejing turned his attention to Loro Lamperouki on the other side. At this time, there was an uproar in the entire Imperial Court, and the people in the VIP seats dispersed in a rush. As long as they were on Blue Star, everyone was recalled to Blue Star. The people in the Crescent Empire also received the notice, and all of them looked gloomy, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, the good news arrived a little late, and the Crescent Empire had already announced its establishment. Otherwise, if it had been 5 minutes earlier, the establishment ceremony would have to be interrupted. "I'm going to find Lola," you keep an eye on Ai Zyakui and the others. Yejing stood up and walked towards Lola Lampaluki. When he arrived, Lola Lampaluki's face was pale and bloodless, and when he saw Yejing, he hurriedly grabbed Yejing's arm and said excitedly, "My father's star sea route is absolutely fine. Don't be excited." Yejing hurriedly comforted Lola Lampaluki, and realized in his heart that it was no wonder that the first expeditionary force was wiped out. These nobles and royal families of the Crescent Empire were like their own mothers who had died. It turned out that they were afraid of making mistakes on the route. I think so. The Star Sea route that the Crescent City Lord spent 10 years to open up is the greatest contribution that the moon has made to the blue planet. If there really was an error, deviation, or trap on the Zingai route, which led to the annihilation of the first expeditionary force, then the newly established Crescent Empire would probably declare its demise the next day. These people will all die. Don't get excited. No one said there was an error on the Zingai route. Your father's contribution is correct. Yejing hurriedly comforted Lola Lampaluki. Hearing what Yejing, a blue star, said, the Crescent nobles, who had originally looked ashen, suddenly felt a little comforted and looked at Yejing with gratitude.